Start. We explore the New World Order, finance, science, health, and other subjects in our group discussions of activists, bloggers, authors, and other leaders in the independent media to inform and educate listeners on various topics. Join us the second Saturday of the month at 10 to 12 a.m. Pacific Time, 18 to 20 hours GMT. Looking forward to meeting you. Hi, this is Detlev here of Wake News Radio, Wake News TV. We are on our UnitedWeStart Roundtable discussion show of June 9th, 2018. And as you may expect, there are lots of topics to talk about. And I'm here with my friends and co-hosts, Matt Navarro, Alan.
Morning.
Yeah.
Hello.
And Michael.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So why don't we start? Well, I'm producing out of Switzerland here, so we are an international group. Matt is from the U.S. and even the West Coast, and Alan is from Ireland, and Michael as well is from Switzerland. So why don't you present yourselves quickly, and then we get into our topics. Alan, why don't you start?
Yeah, no worries, right? I'm Alan James. My co-host is Stephen George, and we do a radio show every month. Well, every month, every Sunday from 7 to 9 GMT, and that's oamradio.com. And you can pop over there and hear us live. We also do the podcasts, and we put them on YouTube as well, put them on the website if people want to catch up there if they can't make the live show. And welcome aboard, and good to see all the guys on, and we're going to have a good chat tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ellen. And Michael, why don't you present yourself?
Right. My name is Michael. I'm a philosopher and a musician. I studied classical music, and I studied philosophy, and I tried to look at behind the curtains between the eternal battle of good and evil, how things happen, and to analyze today's political situation within this frame.
All right, and you're also a moderator here at Wake News Radio, Wake News TV. You have your own show, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Every last Tuesday in the month, I have my show in German.
Wonderful. Matt.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Matt Navarro from the New World Order Report. My website is nwodor.com, nwodor.com. Hop on over to the podcast archives page, and there's a library of great information about the New World Order, how it works, who controls it, what their plans are, and there's a lot of information on health and staying healthy. You've got a lot of world-class doctors on my shows, and they talk about how to stay healthy in this toxic environment. Because as you know, the New World Order's objective is to exterminate 80 to 90% of the world's population. And that's why we're here at UnitedWeStart.org, is to help educate folks so that they know what the New World Order is and how to combat that in a peaceful, non-compliant way. So I'm glad to be here with all of you this morning.
Wonderful. Now,
and what about yourself, Detlev? Tell us all about your radio show and what you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm based here in Switzerland, and I have regular shows going on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and occasionally other show times in German, though. The UnitedWeStart Roundtable is the only English-speaking show, although I have a few interviews in English occasionally. Well, and we are fighting the development of the New World Order from here, from Switzerland, which is basically in the middle of the beast, right? Because we have the Bank of International Settlements directly here in Basel. That's the place where I am. And you can imagine it is not a very easy task to survive here as an independent, free medium. But anyways, we surrender. We don't surrender. We manage. We manage to survive. We're surviving. That's what I wanted to say. But it's hard. It's not an easy task. But nevertheless, we are looking forward to discussing issues today with all of you. And one of the topics which are very actual and very present is the Bilderberger meeting in Turin in Italy. So I would pose this into the middle of the show. What do you think? What is happening there? What is your point of view? Ellen, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. The Bilderberg meetings have been going for an awful long time, and anybody who's into the alternative media is well familiar that once a year all these elites get together and they talk about what their plan is for the world and what they want to do, and various people get asked to come along to get initiated into the Bilderberg meetings, and they are held all over the world, not just in one location. What they talk about is, top secret, I suppose. Sometimes we get a few leaks out as to what they're talking about. Now, I did listen to Thomas Williams' show that he did on Thursday, and one of the things that he did say on the show was that possibly, he didn't say for definite, but he said possibly this year's Bilderberg meeting is going to be the last meeting of the Bilderberg group. Now, he didn't say it was for definite, but the feedback he got from his intel is that this possibly could be the last one, because there's an awful lot of changes going on the planet. There are a lot of good changes going on. We've had certain issues with the banking system and the visa, which we can talk about later, what happened across Europe, I think. Definitely over here in Ireland and the UK. Issues with the visa. So that's that's what we've been told. The Bilderberg meetings, there's nothing much that you can do. That high security, you can't get in. There's been a lot of reports on it. They are being exposed. People are beginning to know about them and what's going on. And the more we expose what's going on, the less chance they have of hiding stuff. And one of the quotes I heard throughout history, which is quite important, is any secret society throughout history that has been exposed has never lasted. So it's up to us and everybody and the alternative media to expose as much as we can.
Very right. Matt, what's your point of view?
I was one of the first ones on the internet who exposed the Bilderberg group. I used to subscribe to this newspaper out of Washington, D.C. called The Spotlight. And the only person that would report on this anywhere that I saw was Jim Tucker. He would go there and get reports from folks within the Bilderberg meetings, and it was very nefarious, or at least seemed nefarious at the time, and I guess it still is, because it's so secretive. I don't know if this would be the last Bilderberg meeting. I'm rather dubious of Thomas's information. He can't prove a single word of what he says. He can't justify a single word of what he says. So for me, I'll put that on the back burner as okay, well, maybe, but as far as for what they do, they, like Alan said, they discuss financial matters and world matters that affect our lives, and anything we can do to expose them would be good. Now, I find it entirely telling that Alex Jones, who's sent reporters, and he himself has been to Bilderberg before to expose them, hasn't even covered this, or isn't even covering this at all for this year. So that kind of shows you where he's gone away from exposing real truth and information out there to just being another agent of whoever controls him. You know, I think Alan might be right though, that the more exposure they get, the less they can hide, and the less effective they can be. So personally, I'm hoping that Thomas might be right, but I'm not going to give him any. I mean, I'm not going to give any credibility because, like I said, he can't support anything of what he says.
Thank you, Matt. Michael, do you have any thoughts on the Bilderberger meeting?
Yeah, to me, this Bilderberg is only a fraction of evil, and I heard that they're not on the highest top echelon. But the fact is, and you have to think about it, what are they really talking about in those meetings? They definitely, discuss power issues, and you can go through the agenda and see these and that point and this point, Russia, China, all these points of artificial intelligence and all these things. But what are they really discussing? When they talk about occult issues, definitely it won't be point of the agenda. I'm sure. I'm dead sure. So even though I think in this hierarchy, Bilderberg is only, I would say, in about the second or third level. So I would be interested what really is their purpose. And they have sort of a semi-public kind of function. Basically, I have more questions than answers, and I would like to pass these questions on to the team.
Yeah, thanks. Well, there are informations out there, and there are people in Turin who are reporting on it, like Dan Dix or Luke Rutkowski from We Are Change, and they are being attacked violently by the security forces of any kind. So everything is available, from carabinieri to military forces to police, what have you. So they definitely try to not get anybody close to the participants of the Bilderberger meeting. And the topics, the list of participants, of the official participants, is available. We can talk about this, but the other thing is they have certain topics for discussion, which they published as well. And you are definitely right. It is just the overall topic. It is not really explaining what they will be discussing in terms of content. But it's populism in Europe. Secondly, the inequality challenge. Then the future of work, the artificial intelligence, the U.S. before midterms concerning Donald Trump, free trade, U.S. world leadership, Russia, quantum computing, Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's most probably talking about war, and the post-truth world, which is also funny. I don't know what they will mean with that, and current events. So it's covering basically what is interesting for us as well, isn't it? What's your thought, Ellen?
Well, it's very hard, as you say, to get the information out. I know Tucker used to report before he passed away. He used to be at the Bilderberg meetings on a regular basis reporting, and obviously some information used to get out. I remember when Luke Rudowski, we did interview Luke on OIM, did a video interview with him a few years ago, and he was over in I'm not too sure whether it was France or whether it was a Bilderberg meeting in Watford, and he got an email who apparently was from an insider, allegedly, and the insider said, right, I'm going to send you over some information of what was said and send you some photos as well. And of course, Luke couldn't open up the email on his laptop, so he went to his friend's laptop, who's a Frenchman over there, or an English guy. And it turned out that the photos that were sent over were dodgy photos, pornography, probably pedophilia stuff, because they were trying to set Luke up. He actually came out on video and was talking about this. And the idea, I suppose, would have been that he opened them up, they'd be cached in his computer, And then when he went through customs, they go, oh, let's check your computer. And then obviously he'd have some caching in there of the files. And then the big expose, because the 5 things that they look at, they look for exposing people are money, sex, religion, politics, and drugs. And they will look at individuals and you say, how can we manipulate this person? How can we kind of use one of them features to entrap this person? And it's a common thing that they do, and this is what they tried to do for Luke. Lucky enough, the images wouldn't work on his machine, so he opened up on the local machine, and then he realized what they were trying to do. They're trying to set him up. So we have to be careful on a regular basis anyway. So anybody that says they're from Bilderberger for anything, any insider that sends information or video links, you have to be careful because you just don't know what's in there. As for the Bilderberg meetings, again, I don't know enough about them just to say what goes on and what we've seen over the years, that between Alex Jones and David Icke and Luke Rudowski and, people turning up at the meetings and exposing that they're going on and putting videos out there and streaming live from outside the Bilderberg meetings. Again, it's exposing what's going on, and the elites don't like that. They like to do things in the shadow, and for people being exposing it, well, that's the way to go.
Sure. Yeah. Matt, would you like to add something to the topics or anything?
You have to wonder why they would be so secretive if what they were doing was any good. If they were doing anything that we would be approving of, then you would think that they do it in the light of day. But like Alan was saying, they hide in the darkness because, perhaps what they're talking about is not good for society. And that's what we've always speculated. These are the top bankers and elites in the world. And so they control a lot of how governments operate. One of the subjects you said they were going to talk about is populism. Well, populism is gaining in popularity around the world. They can't control it. They have to find some ways to control it, like censoring us through social media, like Facebook or Twitter, or censoring the corporate-controlled media in the news. But as independent thinkers, we get around that with shows like this and others like us, and we try to expose that. And I think, with the secrecy and topics like that, you can kind of surmise that what they're up to is not good for humanity. And that's why I started, exposing them as far back as the early 90s. It can't be any good. So, let's keep getting the word out. Let people know what the Bilderberg Group is. It's a convention of, some of the top leaders and corporate leaders, bankers in the world. And they get together to talk about plans for the world. And they kind of put that in place when they get back to their regular jobs. And it's very subtle in its implementation, but you see it in the outcome, like, say, Monsanto pouring millions and millions of dollars into states where they want to, say, label GMO foods. Folks can vote to have labeling on their GMO foods, like California and Oregon tried, and Monsanto invests millions of dollars into those campaigns to block that. That kind of outcome is what I suspect is what's discussed within the Bilderbergs.
Yeah. Michael, do you have any additional viewpoints to topics and so forth? Michael?
I just came back. I had to be out. Could you skip me for this time?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thoughts definitely are that it could be that they are planning a new attack, which is not surprising, though, against us. And one of the things which is very interesting is, I guess, the populism in Europe, because I believe even the change in politics in Italy just now, where new parties actually took over, shows that there is a change in the way they are dealing with governments in Italy and in other countries as well. But on the other hand, those governments as well will be a controlled bunch of people, because they were not turning against the Bilderberger meeting taking place in Turin, highly secured by forces which usually will not come to a chat between some important people. So there's something going on. There is truth behind what Matt and Alan said. So it is very strange because they set up this populism themselves, don't you think? What's your point of view?
No, I think populism is organic in its nature, because people, aside from getting the basics of their life, food, water, shelter, clothing, outside of that, people's yearning is for freedom. And people want to be free, and they can see through this open borders policy how it's destroying all of Europe, where they're bussing in and flying in hordes of illegal or refugees, I guess in this case in Europe, and they're changing the dynamic of these countries so that people don't have a sense of who they are. They don't have a sense of origin. In Germany, I guess I'm hearing about rape gangs in Germany and rape gangs in Sweden, and they can't report on the status of these migrants, because they don't want to be offensive. What they're doing is trying to balkanize everyone so that we are against each other, against our, are at each other's throats, instead of looking at them. And this populism is that's getting in momentum, is the outcome of people just wanting to be free. They don't want their countries inundated and taken over with other folks. They like their heritage, and that's what this whole open borders thing is all about, is to erase that kind of heritage. So this populism that people are seeing, they're talking about, they want to try to get that under control so that their agenda can be moved forward.
Yeah, true. And it's not only raping, it's also murdering. So they are not raping only the women here, but they're also murdering them. There's just another case here which happened a couple of days ago. So it's in Germany. So it's very, very tough here for the local government as well, because Merkel, as such, is now being taken responsibility or responsible for what is happening. So let's see what comes off. Yeah, I mean, I agree to a certain extent, but on the other hand, I suspect that the Rothschilds and others are controlling always both sides, always every side of the team or of the happening. Alan, what's your point of view?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've said before on the show, over here in Ireland, we had a thing called the Celtic Tiger. And it was when kind of we had prosperity in Ireland, well, so-called prosperity. And the deal that we heard through the grapevine was that at the time, Bertie Ahern was the Taoiseach Prime Minister. And the deal was that if Bertie opened up the borders, then Europe would give him money, for funding projects and stuff like that. And in the eyes of the people, they think you'd probably be a saint, with all this money coming in, not knowing that a deal has been struck to open up our borders. So the money came in. Now, if you speak to people like Steve, who's my co-host, at the time I wasn't in the country, I was living in the UK, they said that, the money really went to the 1%. in Ireland. Steve said, I don't remember seeing the Celtic Tiger. Yeah, people kind of spent money, but it's all on credit, and he ended up in massive debt. There wasn't really a lot of money coming into the country that he could see. So the money that from Europe comes in, it goes to the 1%, the property developers and all the bankers and politicians and everything else, allegedly. And everything's been exaggerated. The house prices and the property market they were all exaggerated to the extent that the government was saying, if you don't buy a house, then you won't be able to get on the property ladder. And I was caught up in that as well. I ended up buying a house way over the cost of what the value of the house was, but only because we had to go and get something at the time, and the house price was just ridiculous. But that they were the prices of the houses, and we didn't have a choice in the matter. And then we had the obviously the bubble burst. This odious debt that we owed. The developers spent a lot of money, and they went bankrupt, and the banks wanted the money back, and they couldn't give the money back to the bankers. So what the government did is they nationalised the debt in Ireland, and it meant the taxpayer had to pay for it. Now, that was an odious debt. I shouldn't have to be paid. That should never be nationalised, because after the stock exchange crash in 1929, they brought in the Glass-Steagall Act, and he said that the corporate loans that go into business and industry should be separate to the commercial loans, should be separate to the personal loans of the people. And then in 1999, Bill Clinton signed that back into law. So they joined them two again. So basically what the banks did is they went cap in hand to the government, and the government just kowtowed to the actual bankers and nationalised the debt. And now the taxpayer, and we paid 42% of the debt in Europe. So we really got screwed over by Europe and the system. And we should have never paid that, because an odious debt is something that affects the people, and if it affects the people, it shouldn't be paid. We should have had a referendum at that time, and obviously there's no referendum called. It was all kind of pre-planned and organised. So that really, Ireland was doing okay until we had to pay off that debt. Now there is one of the guys over here called David Drum, who was one of the guys in charge of the Anglo-Irish Bank, who was one of the big contenders who took loads of money from Europe. And they went bankrupt, and he basically caused 7.2 billion of debt. And David Drum has been convicted recently. In the last couple of weeks, he was in court, and they found him guilty of being in charge of this. But everybody's pointing the finger at this guy David Drum, and yeah, okay, he was part of it. But to be honest with you, so were the banks, so were the politicians, so were the government. But nobody else has been roasted over it. Just one guy has been the patsy for it. And at the end of the day, there's more people involved in that scam. There's loads more people. But whether it's going to come to light, I don't know. So going back to this Celtic Tiger thing, yeah, the borders are now open. And like you said, Detlev, things are happening and nationalities are coming over. Now, I'm not against anybody who's from Syria, whose America has gone in, blown the hell out of the country, and through no fault of theirs, because they never attacked America, but yeah, they suffered because of it. But we have a homeless crisis over here in Ireland, as do a lot of countries. So trying to fix one problem with another problem doesn't work. We need to sort out our homeless crisis over here first. But what's happening is, as you know, Detlev, all countries have been asked to take in a certain amount of people. And the whole idea behind that with the New World Order that I'm aware of is to water down nationalities. So nobody's Irish, nobody's English, nobody's German. Just a mix of culture to get your New World Order, your New World population. And that's my kind of understanding of it.
Absolutely.
Exactly what they do here in America. They open up the borders and allow these illegal aliens to come in from wherever they come from, and it dilutes the
gene pool.
Yeah, the population here, and these folks actually can vote now. Illegally, they vote, and legally, they can vote now. Like in Chicago, they handed out these identification cards that's good for voting, even though they're illegal citizens. So it makes a difference in our elections. Although this last presidential election, the illegal votes couldn't overcome the populism of America that was pro-Trump. But what you're seeing in Europe is what they're doing here in the United States to, like you say, there's no more America. We're just all one people, and we're more easily controlled, because then we don't know, or we don't have an appreciation for our heritage. And here in America, we have a real strong belief in our Constitution, or we used to at least, and they're trying to water that down so that we cough up our rights to the government, and they can determine, every aspect of our life and control every aspect of our life. And that's exactly what the New World Order agenda is.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the mixing of the races and cultures is definitely a plan, because of this guy Count Coudenhove-Kalergi, who was a mix between Dutch and Japanese, and he promoted this idea of mixing all the races in Europe, at least, and was financed by Rothschilds. So you get the idea. Well, anyways, this plan is definitely happening, and many people are expecting another flood of migrants here to Europe after the Bilderberg meeting. Well, we will see how it happens. It was in 2015 at the Bilderberger meeting in Telfs in Tyrol in Austria. And after that meeting, there was the first influx of refugees and so forth. So we'll see what's going to happen. But another issue is, I don't know whether you followed this, there's the first time ever on the 66th public known meeting of the Bilderbergers that there's somebody from the Vatican present. It's the foreign minister of the Vatican who is present. It's Cardinal. I would have to look up his name, which I can do. Just a second. It's the Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State for the Vatican. And this is the first time that Vatican is present in such a meeting.
Interesting.
What does that tell you? What's your idea?
Well, it seems the Catholic Church is in bed with the New World Order.
Well, they always have been. I mean, let's face it. Between the Catholic Church, London and Washington, they're the three places that are controlling the whole show and have been for a very long time. So there's no surprise that the Catholic Church is involved. I mean, again, they're probably just getting their heads up on what the plan of attack is, either dictating what needs to be done or going along to listen to what's being proposed. I think the Agenda 21, Agenda 30 came out of Bilderberg as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michael, are you what's your point of view concerning the issues we've discussed right now?
Right. Well, this whole refugee problem, I want to really put the focus on the evildoers behind the scenes, the so-called elite. And I did a word game in Italy. You mentioned the Carabinieris. I call them the Cabalineris. Cabal from cabal, and neri from black. So I call the Carabinieris not Carabinieris. Instead, I call them Cabalineris. So that's one thing. But in general, I wanted to focus the attention on in olden times when traveling was done, and in the mystery schools when people were traveling, that was always seen as a good thing, that you have an exchange with different cultures. But the person that traveled that had to be prepared to understand this culture inside out And even if, suppose I have to go to an Arabic cultural place, I have to understand this place better than I understand my own culture. That was the focus in the olden times. Now, look, what happens now? Because of some evil action that is caused by the elite, these general public is being shifted. And they have no preparation. They think they're just like shifting masses without any preparation. So whatever you do, when you don't prepare the situation, it can get out of hand. So this getting out of hand is planned by the evil elite, as I call them, the tenebristi. And they have their purpose, which they use the people. In general, I would say, if we shift, for instance, people from Detroit or people from the I don't know, this central place in Germany where they have the industrial, the Ruhr area, where they have industrial production. There are some very unfit and unruly individuals. Now, suppose you send them to Arabic countries or you send them to India, of course, there will be clash of culture because they have not learned to adapt to really understand on a higher level these other different cultures, and they have to be prepared. And that's what these people are doing. So we cannot blame the individual refugee as such, because he is where he is in his development. And there is low kind of souls with lower development. There is, and that's the fact. We have to, live with it. And there is higher developed people. But these elites, they're using it for their purpose. So we have to focus our attention to really fight these elites. And it is really a struggle, a fight, a battle against good and evil. And good is fighting with evil. And we are here on this earth witnessing this battle, and we have to understand it and be rational, basically. I think sort of a synthesis, what we could do is to reunite with these refugees, which are higher developed, and form a sort of like a union with them to make this whole problem, we can make it understood. And then together we can fight these elites. That is a proposal which would be a Christian way, like, for instance, the Christ would have probably suggested.
Okay. Well, I think the major issue is that those refugees, migrants, and so forth are being led to come to Europe in order to gain material things. They're looking for houses, they're looking for cars, they're looking for money and women. So, most of them, at least, you're talking about higher developed migrants. There will be a few, but I don't think that there will be enough to at all influence this strategic influx.
They could educate their fellow refugees, probably. I mean, I'm not sure that works, but it's an attempt to
Sure. It's a good idea, but I think education takes a long time. And also a self-consciousness, and that is something, the consciousness, which is not there. I mean, you cannot educate somebody into consciousness. That is almost impossible. Either you become conscious or you don't.
You can give incense to, that this kind of, you can a little bit develop it. It's not impossible, but it is a very difficult path, I agree.
Yeah, you can stimulate or try to stimulate, and that's what we're trying to do here with shows like that. But, I think, what do you think about the Vatican influx here by this cardinal? Is he collecting information or is he giving orders?
Well, as we know, the Vatican is deeply involved in this kind of elite cabal activities. They're one of the first, basically the first ones which initiated this this game, and they have been infiltrated by evil since the beginning of this whole Catholic movement. So when you start about the creation with the the Mithras orders and from Iran, which was basically an order which has done human sacrifices. And then during the existence of the creation of the Roman, when the Roman Empire went into be Catholicized, then they integrated this Mithras order, and they had to do compromises. The Christians have been vegetarians, the so-called mystical Christians, and they abolished that in the first place as soon as they integrated this Mithras order. So for me, it is clear they're not on the good side. So they are to manipulate the people, to take advantage, to plunder them, and they have only a good system that they gave the government, so to speak, the authority to plunder the people, and they have taken the function to keep the people dumb and stupid, and disinform the people what the real human quest is in the Christian sense, in a spiritual sense. And so for me, it is clear that they're involved on the negative side.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's another thought that the millions of migrants which are coming to Europe, or maybe also to the US, could definitely pump up the strawman accounts. So everybody who's newly licensed as a person under the strawman rules of the bankster system would bring in another 20 million per head, right? So that keeps the debt to the fiat system in motion. In what do you think about that, Alan?
Well, my opinion on the banking system is that all banks are trading insolvent. From experiences that I've seen over here, people challenging the banks and taking them on. So, and the government, the government and the banks are in bed together, as we all know. And we're seeing repossessions take place over here. And they're going against the Irish Constitution, where, we had the case. There's one lady in Ireland at the moment, Yvonne, and she's on hunger strike in jail at the moment. And she's a mother, she has kids. And the judge said, basically, give up your home, make your children homeless, or make yourself homeless, or go to jail. And she said, well, I'm going to jail because I'm not going to make myself or my kids homeless. That's kind of the choice. Now, as far as I'm concerned, in European law, that is not allowed. You cannot do that. This is a civil matter. It's not criminal. You cannot send somebody to jail for something like that, just because she won't give up her property. We also have two other people, Tony Rochford and Joe Ducey, who are in jail also for speaking the truth and exposing what's going on. And again, our justice system has been completely abused. I'm sure the law works okay. I'm sure the legal system works fine. But when it's been abused by the people in power, that's when it stops working. And we had a couple over here, Linda and Gordon, who on the Tuesday night, before we had the beast from the east, over here in Ireland, we had the beast for the east, which is snow that we hadn't had since 1982. On that Tuesday night, before the actual weather was going to come in, the bailiffs went down to the house to evict Gordon and Linda. Now, they went to court, and Linda is not on the mortgage. So she's nothing got to do with the mortgage whatsoever. Her husband, Gordon, his name is on the mortgage. And she said to the judge, dwelling. And in our constitution, the word dwelling is in our constitution. And the judge kept saying property. And she said, no, dwelling. And the judge said property. And then he ended up locking them two up for contempt of court. Now, you can't even say the word dwelling in court, and you get contempt of court to be locked up. So this is how farcical and how abusive the judges and the legal system has got, where all the laws are being ignored. Because we know in court they say, oh, judges are there to interpret the law. And that's fine. But I'm sure if the word dwelling is in the Irish Constitution, that should be used. So this is what's happening in Ireland at the moment, where there's massive repossessions going on. The law is being ignored, because what we have heard through the grapevine is that the banks are insolvent. The European banks want banks around Europe to show a certain amount of assets and to have some money. Basically, they need to have money to be liquidity. And so what the banks are doing is they're either they're creating evictions or causing, pushing through evictions or selling off the properties to the vulture funds. And then the vulture funds are doing that as well. So the mortgages are being sold off for pennies on the pound, and the vulture funds are saying, right, we want their money. And they're sending out what's called the 7-day letter. And the 7-day letter is, to get out of your house, we want your house. Now, we know the money is produced out of thin air. We know that. The fractional reserve banking. A lot of people don't understand money and how it works. So over here in Ireland, that's what's happening. Now, we've only got a population of, 5 million people. And there's over 100,000 plus, probably 250,000 people are going through mortgage issues at the moment. People are starving. There's no food. We're trying to obviously do our bit as well from an OIM point of view. But it's just incredible what's happening with the banking system, and the banks are getting away with this. So I would like to think, I know Matt has his opinion on Thomas's information, and Matt, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, and that's fine. But I've seen enough, I've heard enough of Thomas's shows, and I've seen other things going in the background that are complementing what Thomas is saying. Now, a lot of the time, we do form opinions on what we know. And sometimes maybe we just don't know enough. Maybe we need to do more research in the matter. Because we talked about this on the last UnitedWeStart marathon about UFOs and aliens and everything else. And, we don't have to prove all of them. All we have to do is prove one of them. That's it. So, and I get this argument all the time as well, when we will talk about the fluoride in the water or the aspartame, and people say, oh yeah, sure, I don't believe that, that's all, everything's bad for you. And I kind of say to people, well, you're right. If you don't do any research, then obviously your opinion will be that, it's safe and it's okay. It's only when you start doing the research that you realize, oh, okay, so there is something to this. So, at the end of the day, we can only form an opinion based on what we know. And we have to do the research and look into it. And what Thomas says, other people are saying as well. It's not just what Thomas says. It's other people are saying it. There's other people on the internet out there that are saying the same things. There's certain things that are resonating with them. The likes of the energies hitting the planet. September, October being, definitely a month for something going on. QHHT people are talking about certain stuff as well. So it's a general consensus. Is it right? I don't know. Let's wait till we get to September and November and see what happens. But, let's keep an open mind to it, and let's entertain it. Let's entertain the thought. But so that's really my take. But the banking system, I do believe, is in crisis. This is why what's going on. People can't understand why the banks are pushing for repossessions, especially over here in Ireland. And this is what's going on. They're pushing for repossessions because they need to have tangible assets on their books to show the European bank. And obviously they need liquidity as well. And that's what's happening.
Yeah. I remember a couple of years back, Thomas was saying, yeah, something big is going to happen in September 27. Yeah, I can't tell you what it is because I'm not able to do that. And I can't tell you the sources of my information, but something big is going to happen. And it came around September and nothing happened. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Not buying that one.
I understand that, right? But look,
a lot of what he says, it rings true because, a person can get that just by observing the world. Okay. And then a lot of what he says is fantastical and he can't back a shred of it up. So, I don't hold the guy in high regard. But as far as the banking system, yeah, a lot of people are saying we're headed towards another 2008 financial meltdown. Perhaps that's true because they're seeing the same markers as was available then. So, it may be right that we're headed towards another banking meltdown because, like you were saying, here in the United States, the banks, because of their gambling and these derivatives where, they sold people's mortgages over and over and over again, and nobody knew who owned their house or their mortgages, and you would have all these foreclosures coming. The same signs that were going on previous to the crash here in the United States in 2008, I guess is going on in Ireland now. But what happened was that the bankers went to the Congress and they said, economy is going to crash. There'll be blood in the streets if you don't pay us money. So what did they do? They paid the banks something like $800 billion. It ended up actually being more like 2.3 trillion or something like that. Dollars that the U.S. taxpayer had to pay for the banks to gamble like that. If that's what's coming this fall, okay, maybe that's it. Get me more specific information. Tell me what's going to happen instead of saying, well, something big is going to happen. Yeah, okay, well, a volcano could erupt. Oh, look, that was real. I'm so right.
Okay, look, I know what you mean. But look, things change and situations change. I mean, this geopolitical system that we have with the elites can change. It's probably changing on a daily basis. So you might get somebody contacting you, Matt, and saying, right, I've got a bit of intel for you. Next week, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And then something happens during the week to change that so it doesn't happen. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's never a guarantee. But here's the other thing. If somebody came to you, Matt, and said, I've got some intel, you can give out the intel, but don't say who gave it, because if you give out who gave it, they're going to get killed. Would you give out, for credibility, would you give out the person's name knowing that person could get killed?
No, I would not. But then again, I would find some way to try to validate that information, because Thomas's information is like so out there. Give me one shred of evidence, one shred, and he cannot provide one shred of anything, he says. Not one fact.
Right. Well, unfortunately, if Thomas is linked up with people that are on the inside with intel, and you're on the outside, like me and you would be on the outside, we're not connected to these people, maybe he has all the information and he's seen it, but he's not going to put it out there, because if he puts it out there, people might get killed or might get hurt.
Okay, I can make up that story too. I can make up stories about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny all day long and say, hey, if I tell you who told me about Santa Claus, they get killed. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you about that. That doesn't make Santa Claus anymore. That doesn't make Santa Claus any more real.
Yeah, but Matt, here's the thing. This is where you have to employ integrity. If you have integrity as a person, then you wouldn't be going out and saying, by the way, the Easter Bunny is going to be, coming next week and killing everybody in the local store. There are people out there who sensationalize ideas, and there's people out there who put out wrong information or bad information, maybe for their own ego. Maybe they don't have an integrity. Maybe they just want to get the clickbait and everything else. Put all that in the mix. I could completely understand where you're coming from. But I've known Thomas now for 2 years, and I have found his integrity to be spot on in the 2 years that I've known him.
He sounds convincing. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He can't prove a shred of it. That makes him unreliable in my estimation. That makes him uncredible. He cannot prove his credibility. And so it's just a fairy tale until he can prove anything. And he's not proving anything. And like I said, that big prediction he was making, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And when it didn't happen, well, things change. Oh, really? Yeah, Santa Claus never showed up at my house too, dude.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, look, at the end of the day, I'm happy to entertain the information. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't rely on the information. I just entertain it. and I go, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what happens, right? And that goes for everything in the alternative media, because there's so much out there, so much information out there, and there's so much spin out there that you sometimes have to question yourself on certain things. And we've heard this before about September and the 4 moons and the Shemitah and all this kind of stuff. And here there's a planet X is coming in, and there's a meteorite coming in. You know, we've all been doing this long enough to know, take everything with a pinch of salt and just treat it as information. And it's not fear porn. If you perceive things as fear porn, then it's fear porn. As far as myself and Steve are concerned, we just see things as information. We pop it on the shelf and we go, okay, that's interesting. We pop it there and we see what develops and see what's happening. There are things that Thomas has said that have come through and has I've seen being reported by other alternative media and the mainstream media. So, you know, I wouldn't, you know, by your impression, you're saying everything. That's what it sounds like. No, it's not everything. There's some things he can't validate for whatever reason. He can't validate it until it happens. But there are things that he has validated and have come through and have happened. And I've seen that. But as I say, look, we entertain the information, and that's what we do. I think moving forward on the alternative media, I don't know what the state of play will be. We're halfway through 2018 at the moment. And something that I want to ask everybody here in the marathon is, have you noticed anything regarding the reporting of energy changes across the planet and people feeling different energies, different sensations, and glitches in the matrix? There's some videos out there on YouTube that are quite interesting that you kind of have to kind of go, okay, that was interesting, you know. People doing things, or things appearing in front of them, or people appearing from nowhere, or cars appearing from nowhere, or landscapes changing. And I'll just pass that around to the group.
Yeah, well, we are heading on top of the hour. We're heading towards a break, so we've got about 4 minutes left for this.
Maybe we can take that topic up after the break.
Yeah, it's a huge topic, certainly.
Yeah. So maybe we take a break now and then come back and talk about it.
Yeah. Shall we? Okay.
Yeah. Let's do that. Go to a musical break, and we'll do that after.
Okay. So see you right after that message of freedom by Jordan Page. See you. UnitedWeStart, a group discussion of activists, bloggers, authors, and other leaders in the independent media to inform and educate listeners in various topics. Join us every second Saturday of the month at 10 to 12 a.m. Pacific Time, which is 18 to 20 hours GMT. Join us. We're looking forward to meeting you.
Sons, as I write you this letter, the days past and days yet to come, and the message of freedom, the message of freedom. I stand at the edge of the pages of history, and lessons unlearned. It feels like these pages are remaining unturned, but boys, it's no mystery. Children, I'm sorry to leave you this world in a state of disaster. It was given to me in a similar state, but I woke up so late in the game, now spiraling faster. 'Cause freedom's the answer, so what is the question? Resist the advances of force and aggression, and leave to your children the promise of something more. As God is my witness, I'll be a slave no more. Boys, listen close, for our souls may depend on the actions we take and the causes we choose to defend. So treat every man as a friend and live your own lives in their divine processions, and transform your world with your selfless expressions. Reach out your hands, in time we'll understand. Children, one day I'll be gone, and you'll have to remember these words and be strong as you cling to each other, your family, your faith, and your Father's song. You've known this all along. Well, freedom's the answer, so what is the question? Resist the advances of force and aggression, and leave to your children the promise of something more. As God is my witness, I'll be a slave no more. The message of freedom endured every tyrant or second-rate despot the world's ever known, and for one simple reason, the people have kept it alive. And with no end in sight to the level of violence, that man in high places will sink for to silence the will of the people. In you it must survive. But freedom's the answer, so what is the question? Resist the advances of force and aggression, and leave to your children the promise of something more. As God is my witness, I'll be a slave no more. Well, freedom's the answer, so what is the question? Resist the advances of force and aggression, and leave to your children the promise of something more. As God is my witness, I'll be afraid no more. Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, to be purchased with chains from our necks to our feet? Forbid this, Lord, I know not what is left. Give me liberty, or give me death.
You're listening to the United We Start Radio Marathon on Saturday, the 9th of June, 2018. You have myself, Alan James, from Open Your Mind Radio. You have Matt Navarro from the New World Order Report. You have Detlev from Wake News and Michael from Wake News. And we just did the first hour talking about all kinds of subjects. And this is the second hour now, and we're going to be getting into talking about energies that apparently are hitting the planet. A lot of people are reporting about the energies around the planet and what's happening to them. Everybody has their own individual experiences. QHHT practitioners are regressing people, and they're saying they're having various experiences. People are feeling different things. Some people are feeling ill. They have different medical symptoms and conditions because apparently the energy that's hitting the planet at the moment is having different effects on people. So we're just going to be talking about that and just get a heads up on what the group actually think about it. So we'll start with you, Detlev. What's your take on it?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Well, if you just look at Hawaii, Hawaii is being hit by, I think, almost hundreds of earthquakes. I mean, the Big Island, hundreds of earthquakes a day currently, and there's a lot of lava, erupting, and this has caused a miserable situation for some of the inhabitants there. And there's a major crisis here in Hawaii. So it is very strange why this is happening. And I think there is a certain reason behind that, which is not really clear to the world as such. I mean, there are not real explanations. There has been a fracking going on the Big Island, as I understand, from Harry Reid. Harry Reid's plant was destroyed, during a recent attack by earthquakes and lava. So, and eruptions. So, this is a very strange thing. Does anybody have any explanation for? Matt, you should know.
Yeah, well, I've not heard of fracking going on the Big Island though, but Kilauea, and I lived on the Big Island for a time, and I've been to Kilauea, saw the lava and all that stuff. Has been active since I think 1983, and constantly erupting. This is a process that is natural to the Earth. Volcanic activity has always occurred as far as the planet's been around, as far as I can tell anyway. That's what the scientists tell us. So it's a part of the natural history of planet Earth. Now you combine that with that volcano we just had go off in Ecuador, I think it was. It killed a bunch of folks. Maybe volcanic activity is increasing around the planet. What's causing that? I wouldn't know. Maybe that's what people are feeling, because they say some folks are sensitive to that sort of thing, and the pets are sensitive to that sort of thing. So maybe that's what they're feeling, changes in the Earth's magnetic energy or magnetic fields because of, say, movement of the tectonic plates or gravitational forces from other celestial bodies might be affecting the world. Maybe that's what they're feeling. But I don't know. I kind of associate all these volcanoes and earthquakes with the natural progression of geology on the Earth, personally.
Yeah. I will post a link to Harry Reid's fracking operation here in the chat room. It's a video, actually.
Well, another thought I wanted to bring in is, first of all, there's 2 points that, I have in mind. One is the military secret weaponry which is going on, and that is a subject all by itself. I could talk for hours about this subject. Another thing which is rarely being discussed is that our interconnection with nature through our thoughts and feelings and deeds. And we have to be aware that we live in a materialistic world which is antagonistic to the whole spiritual setup. And suppose these spirits of nature are there and they have to face our antagonistic thoughts, our basically in their eyes useless thoughts of one decadent spirit which is now occupying our minds. That definitely has its impact on nature. For instance, if we would be in harmony with the nature, if we would integrate these spirits of nature and have an intimate relationship with them, then we could tame the nature and make it a much more nicer place. But human being has lost the connection. And instead, it is antagonizing these spiritual beings by these materialistic anti-spiritual thoughts. That's another thing which I wanted to bring in.
Okay. And Ellen?
Yeah, I heard the same rumor as you did, Detlev, regarding fracking in Hawaii. And whether it was purely just the fracking that's caused the problem, or whether there's something else more sinister. We do know they have energy weapons, which they used in California. And I suppose looking at the 9/11, if you look at how the fires happened in California, the houses were burnt, but the actual forest around it and trees around it were all okay, which makes you think, how did that happen? The other thing about the what's going on is they're obviously manipulating the weather. and planetary conditions, and that's changed. And we just had Harry Rhodes on the show there last Sunday, and Harry and his team do an awful lot of work with their Wilhelm Reich translators. He was just been down in South Africa in Cape Town. They had a drought for weeks and weeks and weeks, to the stage where you couldn't even wash your car and stuff like that. You know, you'd be arrested if you did. So Harry went down with his team, himself and somebody else, and they set up the translators down there, and now they're having flooding in Cape Town. So, but he's been using the translators, and I know that the team have been using the Wilhelm Reich technology to try and solve the problem in California as well with the drought. So they are making changes to the planet. Whether what they're doing with the HARP technology and everything else is causing major problems with the tectonic plates, as Matt said, and it's causing a problem with the planet. The magnetics have changed. I think we know that, because the airlines, a lot of the airlines now in America and over here, we've seen it over here, they're actually changing the runway layout and the degrees, because of the magnetics they've changed. And maybe Gaia, maybe Mother Earth is ascending in some kind of way, and this is part and parcel of what's happening, that the volcanoes gone off and storms and everything else. Maybe it's just, you know, changes that are taking place. It doesn't help if man is actually causing the problem as well, because we are seeing a lot of animals dying off. That's happening, and there's no explanation for that. A lot of species are dying off. So I just think that there was the movie which we kind of talk about all the time, which is Silent Green, which is Charlton Heston, which was done in 1972. And it was in the future. Although it was filmed in 1972, it was about the future, and the future was 2022. And in 2022, we were not eating food. It wasn't food, it was processed crap, which is what we're doing now, really. I mean, a lot of the food that we eat is not really food. There's no proteins in it, you know, and the aim of the game is to fatten us up, make us lazy, and when we get sick, we take our pharmaceutical drugs. That's what it's all about. So with the likes of Hawaii, I think there's more sinister things going on there than just fracking. I think they're obviously they might be doing something more there, and whether it'll sort itself out, I don't know. We had a couple on OIM there a couple of weeks ago, Sid and Soma. Sid and Soma wrote a book about Dress to Kill, about the dangers of wearing a bra, that a woman's bra can cause problems with lymph nodes and breast cancer. So they came on the show, but they lived in Hawaii, and we were speaking to them from a friend's house because they had to evacuate their house where they lived. So I don't know how serious now it's got since then. We haven't spoken to them for since we did the interview. But yeah, there's probably more sinister things going on there, and it sounds pretty bad. So, you know, is the planetary ascending and the energy changing? You know, there's a lot of talk on the internet about it, and people are experiencing different things. So I suppose it's down to your own personal experience and what you feel, I suppose, at the end of the day.
You know, I'm looking at this video, that link that Detlev sent out, and it says fracking, but I think it's a misuse of the term here, because they're referring to the geothermal electric plants there in Hawaii, where they pump down liquid into the hot earth because, well, it's volcanic there. So, and they don't have to go very deep. And then that liquid, I can't remember, hexane, I can't remember the name of that chemical. But anyway, it gets heated and it comes back up and it drives turbines, which then generate electricity. Okay, fracking is where they take liquid and pump it into the earth to crack shale and extract the oil that's trapped in the shale. And that's done over a large geographic area. So that's a different kind of method of pumping water into the earth and extracting a liquid. Because to my knowledge, there's no oil or shale on the Big Island to be gained. So fracking in this case, I think, is a misuse of the term. But I still think that, you know, natural earth processes in geology occur. And so, you know, a lot of people look for the end of the world. Armageddon's coming, you know, and the end of the world's coming, and we see this all the time. So I try not to get carried away by that, because every year there's somebody else saying a meteor is going to come and wipe out planet Earth, or some catastrophe is going to happen, and it never happens. What I think is more interesting is the Mandela effect, where people notice things that have changed in history, and I think maybe that might be affecting folks. Like a good example is the Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. In a key scene towards the end of the movie, Darth Vader tells Luke Skywalker about his parentage, and the line from the movie was, "Luke, I am your father." And everybody remembers that. But now on every version of the movie, videotape or DVD or online, the line has changed from "Luke, I am your father" to "No, I am your father." And I can't explain how that happens. And there's tons more examples. If you want to go to my website, nwodor.com, right there on the homepage, I do have a lot of Mandela effect information. Could this be what people are feeling as far as changes, as these changes occur almost instantaneous? You had, what was her name? I had her on my show too, Alan. She, I'll find her name here in a minute. But she was a physicist from California, and she has noticed this kind of events that occur, where things change in our world that kind of happen spontaneously. And maybe this is what people are feeling. This changes, and they're becoming more attuned to that. But as far as associating geology with some earth-changing event, I mean, new energies coming in, I don't know if we can do that yet. There's not enough evidence to support that.
Well, again, it's down to people's personal experience. I'm linked to a number of groups on Facebook, and people are experiencing all different kinds of symptoms, and are feeling certain things. Now, is it related to the energies hitting the planet? I don't know. They are definitely feeling something, and they're definitely feeling changes. And there's a lot of QHHT practitioners like Alison Coe, and we had a lady on there recently. I forget her name.
What are they saying? Specifically, what are they saying?
Yeah, symptoms like, they're feeling energy vibrations. They're not feeling well. They've got headaches. They're not sleeping. Now, you're not, one or two people you could go, well, anybody could suffer from that. But it's just there seems to be periods of time where a number of people are feeling this all at the same time, which is very strange. And we had one lady on, she has a Facebook group called Events Happening, and she has about 2,000 plus people on there. And I see these people chatting, and they're saying, yeah, this happened to me, and they're saying, oh yeah, that happened to me, and it's all kind of happening all around the same time. It's like kind of there's a wave, a wave would come in and everybody'd feel it, and then the wave would go out again, and then they'd be okay for a period of time, and then something else, another wave would come in. Which is quite strange. Everybody feels it differently. I mean, I have felt different energies myself. I have felt, in certain periods of time last year and this year, I felt different things, certain emotions, which I just can't explain, which is very strange. And they're not emotions that I would normally feel. So I can't explain that. So I do feel something is going on a higher spiritual level. But maybe we'll kind of ride the wave and see what happens. Sorry,
what do you think's happening? What do you think's happening? What do they say is changing or causing this?
Well, I do believe that when you step inside the matrix, your consciousness rises. Your vibration, your energy rises, and if you look at if you get kind of an oscilloscope and look at the vibration of fear and look at the vibration of happiness, the vibration of fear is like a staggered, rough kind of effect, where the vibration of happiness is more of a smooth line, more of a smooth sin wave. And we know the powers to be put out information out there, the fear porn. They put it out there beyond Planet X is coming in, we're all going to die, because they want people to be in fear. That's the energy they want to put out there. It's a negative energy. They want to keep people's energy down, and fear is, it's great at doing that. So when you get to the stage that you realize that there's people out there trying to do that and put people in fear, you're going to go, yeah, okay, well, from now on, you just class it as information and you put it on the shelf. And when you get to the stage where you don't see things are in fear, and you're not fearful of these things or what people are saying, then it doesn't have that effect on you. You're not on that emotional roller coaster. So you want to get off the roller coaster and then just see things of information. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I first started off in this and I started going down the rabbit hole and looking at all this stuff, there was a certain level of fear. Oh my God, look at this. You get, of course you're emotional, you're human. Of course you're going to feel it, It's like watching a horror movie and you're getting into the horror movie, the fear of it, But when you actually, after a period of time, not so much that you desensitize, but you understand, you can actually separate out what's kind of relevant and what's not, and what you feel is fear porn. We just treat it, things as information. But I do think there are certain changes. People who are hypersensitive, like electric sensitivity, there's people out there that are spiritual, that are picking up spiritual energy and vibration. And over here in Ireland, what we say is, that person gives me a bad vibe. And what they're doing is they're picking up on that person's energy, their vibration. And I'm a psychic in my own way. I've been involved in the spiritual side for a long time, and I work with people's energy. So I pick up on that as well. And each to their own, people do their own way. So I do think there are things going on, and some people are sensitive, some people are not. Where it's going and where we're going, the Mandela effect is quite interesting, because there is talk about has the timeline been affected? And that's why we have the Mandela effect, because the timeline has changed. We know they have looking glass technology. Do they have the ability that they can change the timeline, which to suit their own needs? Maybe they can use the looking glass technology, see different scenarios of where the Earth is going, and they've used their technology they've had to change the timeline to suit themselves. I mean, that's one possibility.
That is entirely true. Her name was Cynthia Sue Larson. Her book is Reality Shifts.
She was very good, yeah.
Right, and she talks about these kinds of changes in the Mandela effect. Pretty good guest. If you go to my website, you can listen to the couple interviews I did with her. Go to the podcast archive page. As far as fear being the controlling mechanism, you're 100% right, Alan. You nailed it right on the head. As far back as man has had history, fear has been a means of control. Look at your Christian Bible. If you misbehave, God will kill you. It's in the first book of the Bible. Adam and Eve, the story of Adam and Eve. So fear God, because God will kill you if you don't follow God. And then it's been used throughout history, and they continue to use it today in the form of terrorism here and around the world with these false flag events. In America, they constantly use these school shootings to terrorize Americans and keep them in fear of some boogeyman, and that's how they're pushing the agenda to remove the guns from Americans with all these mass shootings that keep us in fear of being shot or people with guns. And if you, like you said, Alan, can step outside the matrix and educate yourself, do your research, and come to your own conclusions, then that fear porn doesn't affect you, and then you can feel other things in life, the good in life, without that fear. So I would encourage everyone to listen to shows like this, do research on the internet. It's getting harder to do that because they're scrubbing information off the internet, but it's still out there, and there's folks like us trying to educate people on what's really going on in the world. Like I said, go up to my website, nwodor.com, hit the podcast archive page, and start listening to those shows, and you'll get great lessons on what's really going on in the world. And this fear then cannot affect you. And then maybe through that, you can make positive changes in the world, your immediate world. And if we do that on a global scale, perhaps we defeat these guys in the end.
Yeah. Detlev.
Yeah, thanks. I would like to pass it on to Michael. Michael hasn't been able to respond to the thoughts yet. Michael, go ahead.
Yes, I think what they're trying to do, these evil elites, is deprive us out of harmony with creation and thus take our happiness away. So what we can do to counterfeit these fear porns is to establish our own positive reality. And that is a fact. That is a reality. And with this reality, we can hook up to our spiritual connections again. So when we are in harmony with our fellow human beings in everyday life, with our partners, with our families, with our friends, that is a reality. That is a powerful thing. We should not underestimate it. And when we are open towards everybody, and we can respect fellow human beings if they're good-willed, to integrate them into our structure, we have already accomplished something. And we shall not let it happen that they can tune us down to these evil, lower frequency of fear and other evil thoughts, because then they win. But if we establish that within our own souls to create this reality, then we have a chance to win. And see, they pull out all these dirty tricks. This, I call it the infrastructure of evil. They pull out their dirty tricks. They try to put us down and from all the sides, but still, goodness and the good will prevail. That is the thought always, I think. Even in dark moments, when you're in a dark tunnel, you think, my goodness, it is dark here. It is really bad. But I think I see already a shining light at the end of the tunnel. And that helped me a lot in my life to come out of these dark moments and say, yes, that is the real goal. That makes me happy. And that is worthwhile living every second of the life.
Is it worthwhile saying, or I'll just ask all three of you, you know, we've been doing the alternative media since we've all woken up for the last good few years. I mean, Open Your Mind Radio has been going now for 8 years. And I've been awake since 2001. Well, I've been interested in you know, ETs and UFOs and all that kind of stuff for a long time, since I was a kid. But really stepping outside the matrix would have been 2001. Now, if we look back at how people have been very close-minded or been asleep, and then look at 2018, where we are now, do the three of you feel that more and more people are beginning to wake up to what is going on in your own experience? Matt?
Yes. The answer would be yes, but not as quickly as I would like. And some people deliberately want to remain asleep, and because they can't handle the truth. You know, in my own family, they're seeing now that the crazy things I was saying 25 years ago are actually coming true, and there's no way to dispute that. And I think as more of us tell people these crazy ideas about the New World Order, and they start seeing it happen in their own lives, and the reality that they have to confront then is if, you know, and they have to make a choice of whether to remain asleep or to awaken. Well, their awakening, I don't know if it's fast enough that we have time to make this all reverse, or we just go down the road of the New World Order agenda coming to fruition, and they exterminate 80 to 90% of us, destroy a lot of, you know, the Middle East, so it's never inhabitable again, and put us into all these little smart cities, as they want to call it. No, I think through efforts like ours, we are winning in that sense. I just don't know if it's fast enough.
Well, that's the Detlev.
Yeah. Well, I should say yes. I can actually feel that lots of people are waking up and questioning things around them, but they are very much afraid of losing their jobs, losing their income, making it a hard life to survive for themselves and their families. So they're very reluctant to join in our initiatives, whatever it is. I mean, listening to the show is one thing, but acting, that is another. But there is a certain growing number of people who are resisting also the terror and tyranny of the so-called states, which are only companies or corporations, as we all know now. So there's a general awakening taking place. So
well,
they
don't have to lose their jobs. I just think there are things people can do on a practical level on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, but they're being threatened. I've had this experience here right around my place, where people actually stood up and shouted out their political opinions, and they were threatened to lose their jobs. So they are afraid, and since then they are low key. Okay, so they are depending on their income on the debt based fiat money system, which is also a shame. I mean, a sham as such. So I'm there are not too many people like us who are standing up and showing their face and shouting out their opinion and fighting for freedom and so forth. There are not too many doing that. There are more followers, but they only will follow once they see the success, of yourself. If I can get something through by, doing certain things, then they will copy me. They will try to do it the same way. But still, a certain level of experience and consciousness necessary to do so.
I agree with you there. We actually, myself and Steve, offered on our show if anybody wanted to set up their own radio station and do their own thing, rather than give a man a fish, but show a man how to fish and give them the skills necessary so they can set up their own alternative radio show and do this. And we only had one reply from somebody in Canada, yes. And another lady who said that she might be interested, which she gets the funds to buy the equipment, and that really disappointed me, because over here in Ireland anyway, there's only 2 alternative media radio stations that I'm aware of. There's people doing podcasts, but I'm talking about shows who are actually streaming live at a certain time every week, and that's ourselves on People's Internet Radio, and we stream on People's Internet Radio. So I don't know why people don't join in and set up their own shows or do their own alternative websites or what have you. I don't know why that is, but I'll pass it over to Michael. And Michael, give us your take on how you feel if people are waking up in the time you've known.
I definitely would agree, and I would agree with all the previous things being said. I think that a lot of people are waking up, and that is the problem what these people have, because these evil elite, they want to put us on a schizophrenic, fictive projection of reality, which is not our life. They want to kidnap us from our life quests, and they have partially succeeded doing so. But I think more and more people get aware of this original godly quest that is ingrained in our soul, and that discrepancy will help them to find the path. And I think it is like a big rock, when you push it up the hill, and the hill gets a little bit more flat, and then even on the other side it goes downhill. Now we're on the time of pushing up that big rock up the hill, and it slightly gets, a little bit more flat. And at the end, I think this whole avalanche of people will come out and destroy and end all this evil projection, as I would, classify it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, people won't do anything or can't do anything if they're not aware there's a problem in the first place. We over here in Ireland, there is an element of "I'm okay, Jack," or "Sure, what else can you do?" is the common statement. And if they actually took the energy, they could actually realize they could actually do a lot. But it's taking the time to do it. And I suppose if you're working in a full-time job and you're just barely getting by, because there was a famous statement made, and they said the people who are struggling won't rebel because they're so busy struggling that they don't have time to rebel. But there are things that people can do. I don't think protesting works. I've been on a number of protests, and the government just ignore the people and just carry on doing it. So I just think the power is with the people, and the more people we wake up and they realize what's going on, regardless of the level, because people wake up at different levels. Some people wake up because either it's because of a health issue, or it could be a banking issue or something like that, and they start questioning, the system, and that's fine. And then there's also the big level of the kind of ET, looking glass, advanced technology stuff. And what we say, we did a talk, as you guys know, and we have another talk to do in November, down in the Open Mind Conference, and we talk about the fluid belief system and how you believe and how you treat the information. So it's not so much what the subject matter is, but how that person psychologically deals with it in their own mind, and how our minds work with the information. And I think what we try to do with that talk is to try and say to people, if you're getting into a discussion with people, don't get into the subject matter, but find out exactly how the mind works. That's the important bit, because when they realize that they've been programmed and they shut down straight away without actually questioning their own belief system, then it kind of gives you an idea of how they think. And we've been, it's been very successful. And I've used this method on a few people that have questioned how what I believe in, and their argument kind of falls down because, they end up they realize that, well, I haven't done any research, I haven't done the information, I don't know enough about aspartame, MSG, fluoride, but everybody has an opinion. That's what you'll find. But an opinion is not fact, and sometimes people confuse opinion with fact, and an opinion is not fact. But yeah, so if you haven't seen the video, it's on YouTube, but we'll be doing the talk again in November.
Well, Alan, I think that's a very good point. And I think what one could do is to help to lead the people out of this schizophrenic projection, or this schizophrenic fiction, is to give them courage. It's okay when we say don't participate in the system, be courageous, give up your job. I mean, that's a hard thing, a hard decision to make. But still, I would propagate that. Be courageous. You won't starve. Buy a couple of seeds, and if you have land or access to land, then grow your own tomatoes. I mean, it's radical, but I would even unless the people are ready to do that, this dirty system, this evil system, wouldn't end.
It'll take some kind of galvanizing event to wake a mass of people up, and my fear is that as soon as they see enough people and enough movement towards something revolutionary, they'll create a false flag event to put us back in fear. What we can do on a personal level is simple things that we can pull ourselves out of the system. Simple things like eating non-GMO organic food, drinking clean, non-fluoridated water, not eating processed foods with aspartame or MSG. You can take back your health. And then by doing so, you don't feed the pharmaceutical corporate beast or the medical corporate beast because you're not sick anymore. We can do those sorts of things. And like Michael was suggesting, grow your own organic food. I raise chickens and I eat organic chicken eggs. You can do these little things to improve your life and not be part of that system. But is there room for a revolution? Gee, I would think so at some point, We elected Trump, which totally bucked the rigged election system. So, and people in England voted for freedom with the Brexit, and now Italy's formed a new anti-Euro government, anti-EU government. So maybe these little wins add up in quickly enough so that we can overcome this. But you can do little things every day on your own, like simple as drinking fluoride-free water.
I think you're right there, Matt. I think I have to agree with you on that. I do think we need something that's going to be a catalyst to wake people up. We could be carrying on. I do come across people, as I'm sure you guys do, and I shake my head and I think, you know what? It's going to take us another 200 or 300 years to get people to a level of consciousness where they get it. And so what you said there about having something globally major to happen to wake people up, I definitely think that has to happen, because otherwise we could be doing this. As Detlev said, there's only a handful of people in the alternative media who are doing it for the right reasons. There's people out there who are doing it because they're making money from clickbait. They're putting it out there because they have a big ego. There's people selling books and putting crap in the books, which I was told by somebody well known. They were speaking to speakers and they're saying, "Oh yeah, I just write a book and put crap in it, and it sells and it makes me money, and I'm happy with doing that." So we have a major fight, and so there's only a handful of us that are genuinely doing the fight and have some level of integrity in doing what we're doing. Something major, I think, has to happen to catapult us forward. There are things happening, as Detlev said, regarding Brexit, and even Trump. There's changes going on there with Trump. I know he's not 100%, but it's not down to the person, but down to what the person does. Prove to me that you want to do well by showing us that you want to do well and do things that you're doing well. And we need people in their respective countries to put their money where their mouth is and make changes. Brexit is happening. Italy is now happening as well. Europe was doomed to fail anyway. So, I think that's definitely on the cards. Europe's going to fall apart. But I definitely do think the catalyst we need something major to advance us forward, to move. So otherwise, we could be doing this for the next 10 years and we will see subtle changes and maybe a bigger portion of the planet will wake up. But, I do think we need something to push us forward a bit. Detlev.
Yeah. Well, another thing is Putin just mentioned again, just recently, I think it's a day ago, that he warns the world against any major war, because this is going to bring us down to whatever earliest times in Earth's history. So he's giving this warning against NATO and everybody else, the US especially, who are trying to push forward their warmongering and their building up of forces. I mean, that's what's happening in Europe here. I mean, I just had a message here. Thousands of U.S. vehicles are moving through Germany to Poland, right, towards the Russia. So that is another thing which is a threat, a real threat. I mean, we don't know whether nuclear weapons will work or not, but the massive forces, the regular forces, are there as well. So what's your take on that? Is there... would that be this push, which is? I
would agree with that one 100%. I'm seeing it here in the corporate media in the United States, this demonizing of Russia and this antagonizing of Russia, and we're just constantly poking them for no reason. It looks like we want to start a war with Russia over, say, Syria or Iran, and in either case, the bankers win, and that's, I don't know, the war that they want to get started, the Third World War. I don't know. I'm that's what I'm seeing, and maybe that's the catalytic event that galvanizes people around the world to start really seeing that, the government and corporate media lie to us, and we start overturning our governments at that point through whatever peaceful means we can, I suppose.
We'd have to say. I mean, the prediction of the late 1800s of Albert Pike and the Protocols of Zion, where he said there's going to be 3 world wars, and we've had 2. The third one will be between the Christians and the Muslims. And if you look at what's happening in Europe, what's happening? The Christians and the Muslims are beginning to fight each other. So again, the divide and conquer program they're using to get to their means. And maybe Russia is obviously, he's the bad guy in the block because Putin's not doing what he's told, and he's not playing ball with the factions of the global elite. So obviously they're going to demonize him in the media, as you said, Matt, on the American TV. I mean, most of the countries that America is in, they haven't done anything to America.
Right.
So again, but what I've heard also, and I was talking to JP about this a while ago on Wolf Spirit Radio, is that the Silk Road, the train that comes from China over to Europe and bypassing the actual seaways where America tends to control a bit of that, they don't want this train. So if China and Russia are working together to do this train track to bypass using the seas to transport goods, then America is going to be left out in the cold. So one of the things they want to do is stop this Silk Road from happening. So by moving troops in and causing trouble, obviously they're going to try and stop it by doing that.
Well, I think people have to realize that governments are their enemies. That is what the whole thing is about. Government, church, and religious organizations, almost in total, are their enemies. They are against their development. And you, Alan, before mentioned that what can we do to make people awake of such, to create more awakeness in the society. I think we have to confront the soul to reflect about their happiness. Ask a policeman, are you happy harassing people? Is it joyful? Do you feel fulfilled doing your job? I mean, we have to really confront people like that. And if you do that, if you find a way to the roots of the soul, that every human being wants to experience harmony with their environment, harmony with their family, harmony with their fellow human beings, and that the system which surrounds us is completely leading us astray by program. So if you are able to tell these people, listen, establish your own harmony again. That is your privilege. That is your life's quest to establish your harmony. And if that makes you happy, you won't get sick anymore when you have this harmony. You feel good all day long, and you are fulfilling the God's work this way. So basically, that is easy said, but I know it's not easily done. So I'm asking you guys, what can one do to really, bring down the people to look at these issues?
I don't think everybody, Michael, is going to wake up. I think we've got to the stage, ignorance is a choice now. All the information that people need is out there. It's on the internet. You can talk to people. A lot of people are well aware of what's going on. Not everybody, but there are people who will never wake up because they're comfortable in their little cocoon. And,
Are they really?
Well, yeah. In their belief system, they are happy. There's a difference between the balance and imbalance of their life. I mean, that's why people won't change, because change takes energy. And if people are happy with their life, then why did you want to take the energy to change it? Why did you want to change it? There has to be, sometimes a lot of the time, it's a catalyst, like a death or an illness or a repossession or something that triggers that change. Because, it's happened to me when I was working in London. I was quite happy with everything the way the status quo. And something needed for me to be triggered for me to make a change to what I did and move country. and I got made redundant. And that was the big trigger. If I didn't get made redundant, I'd probably be still living in London. So there has to be some trigger in a person's life, regardless of what it is, for them to make that change. Now, some people it will happen to, some people it won't happen to, because there are different between synthetics and organic on the planet. And we've spoken to about 5 different people. We've 5 different people we've had on the show, and we've asked them about our organics and synthetics. And they said, yeah, there's only a small percentage of people on the planet who are actually organic. And that's why you see people doing things, what they do, because there's no soul there. There's no understanding there of soul. So I think, as going back to what Matt said, maybe we do need something big to happen, and people like ourselves who are aware, when people are kind of running around like, headless chickens, we'll be there to kind of calm them down. The old saying, if it all goes to shit, go to your local conspiracy theorist. That might be the case. We're the people who are woken up. And we are the people who will calm people down to say, okay, this is what's going on, guys. This is the problem. Because if we had an Independence Day, I've said this before, I think, on the show. If we had, for example, an Independence Day throughout the world, can you imagine people that around you that just are oblivious to what's going on? What would happen to them? What they would do?
If they're were sending their kids off to war, and those kids were coming back in body bags en masse. And then they instituted a draft because we have to fight these evil, whoever it is, whatever side you're on. People are going to wake up then, like they did when we had the draft and during the Vietnam War. It woke people up then, and it mobilized the nation to stop the war, and they got it done. So maybe a World War III would do that, for Americans. Now we have a different opinion. Yeah, well, what a price. Maybe that's the catalytic event that'll wake people up. Like, though we're entirely correct, Alan is saying, being awake is a choice now because the information's out there, But when the fecal matter hits the mass air wind producing device, we'll be here. Calm everybody down, go to your local conspiracy theorist. Whether it's going to be a war, I don't know. I mean, Detlev said something there about the nukes. Well, we know that they've tried to set off nukes before and they haven't succeeded. Maybe there's a higher power somewhere out there, maybe from an ET point of view, that won't allow that to happen. This is what we've heard. Is that true? I don't know. But no, it's not, because North Korea, within the last few years, detonated a bunch of nukes, so that's not true.
Who did?
North Korea did.
Yeah, but they didn't nuke anybody with them. They were just testing them.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so you're saying like nuking a population of some kind, not just testing nuclear. Oh, okay. Yeah. Different then.
Yeah. So but the only way we can only surmise. A lot of the time we can only surmise the information out there because we don't have inside intel. We're not connected to the ETs, and we're not getting downloads from them telling us what's going on. So we can only kind of rationalize in the knowledge that we have and throw it around and put it out there at the end of the day, and then see what happens. But hey, that's the fun part of it.
It could also be something else. It doesn't necessarily need to be World War III. I mean, the predictions also say that there may be a natural catastrophe or an extraterrestrial influence catastrophe hitting Earth. I mean, we've been talking about Planet X, something like that. It's not not necessarily necessary that it is Planet X, but something could happen to mankind that brings us back to reality. I mean, that's basically what is needed. I don't think that it is enough if only few people like us in the new media scene will try to go on forever. I mean, this is going to take ages, 300 years, as you said, Ellen, possibly. So this is not the solution. There has to be a certain event, whatever it is.
I think also the act of the free will could happen if people realize it, if more and more people wake up, and the ones that already have achieved a certain kind of degree of self-awareness, they could form new communities together, so to speak, where they live together with a different kind of system or no system at all. But it would have to be an active path that they have to go on and set an example. So then maybe other people would join in and find that they're much more happy within those communities. That is one, I think, one thing which could lead to a success in our today's world. But basically, people have to be deprogrammed from their elite-inflicted self-betrayal. That is the point. But how to do that? That is the point. But I think only setting an example by a group of people that says we had enough, we don't want to have anything to do with these politicians, nothing to do with governments, nothing to do with all these structures and infrastructures which surround us. We build up a completely new model of life. That, to me, sounds like a promising possibility.
We have to do away with the hierarchical system, because that has too much control, and our society is based on the hierarchical system, and everywhere we go, we have to get away from that and flatten it in a way that it's like indigenous tribes do. I mean, I know there's we have common law, Brehon law, and you can have a handful of people who are there, like the villagers, and they will decide on what's right and wrong. But it'd be a handful of villagers, not like senior people, not like what we have at the moment with governments. But the other thing, just being involved in the alternative media is that, or the new media, is that what we do is a burden as well. And it's a burden because we know what's going on. We know how sick some of these people are and what goes on. And to carry that around, you can understand why people want to take the red pill and just forget about it. Like in the Matrix, your man wanted to go back, get in the Matrix. He wanted to be a record producer and what have you, because he knew what was going on. And so it can be a curse and a burden knowing what we know. But that's just the way it works, I suppose.
You can't unlearn it, though. It's a reality. So if you care about humanity, you do what we do. Yeah,
exactly.
But see how much they're being successful. If I in Switzerland say, okay, I see a beautiful place in the forest, I decide I will build a log cabin over here. 1 hour later, I have the Forest Service on my neck. The second hour, the police will be there. And in the third hour, I'm in prison.
Yeah. So we don't have freedom. So if we're supposed to have a world of free will, well, that has stopped. We don't have free will because our free will is being controlled. So if there's supposed to be a higher power that has the, what's the Star Trek saying? Don't they say in Star Trek they have some protocol that you don't go near the people of the planet?
Oh, yeah. Prime Directive.
Prime Directive. Well, if the Prime Directive is don't go near the planet because we are here for free will, well, where free will was taken away a long time ago. And when people say, well, we do have free will, well, you drive down the road and without a license, or do what Michael just said, set up a log cabin somewhere and then see how quick the authorities jump in. So where free will was taken away a long time ago. So if there's a higher power out there, then they need to come in and make changes because or in whatever way they can, because our free will has been taken away.
Yeah.
Well, so I would not trust them to be also benefactory.
Well, we're heading
benevolent.
We are heading towards the end of the show, so we've got a few minutes left. So shall we wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay. Ellen?
You want to wrap? Okay. Well, thanks to everybody who joined in on the marathon today. Matt, Detlev, and Michael. Well done. Enjoyed the chat. Great information there that we put across. For myself, if people want to find out about OAM Radio, pop over to oamradio.com. You'll find myself and Steve there every Sunday, 7 to 9 GMT. And again, thanks for the chat, guys. Look forward to the next one next month.
Right. Thank you. Matt.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Detlev, for producing the show today. Always great conversation with this group. You know, there's lots more we could talk about. I was just starting to think that the final solution for us would be to find some way of removing the fiat money system. And I think if we do that somehow, I don't know what you replace it with, but if that you were able to nationalize the money, like I guess the Constitution says, and like Putin did, you nationalize the monetary system, then maybe we can become freer again, and maybe that's our answer. But anyway, enjoyed the show with you guys. Look forward to being here next month. Go up to my website, nwodor.com, nwodor.com. Hit the podcast archive page, and there's a great library of education for you. Great guests I've had on. You'll learn a lot, I promise. So you guys want to say it with me? Until next month. What's that?
I said Michael needs to do his bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Okay.
Maybe we've been able to give a humble contribution to everybody out there to step out of the system, think about what they can do. And it was a great show. It was a great, all you guys, did a great job. And I think that next time maybe we can discuss things further. And we hope that one basic message I want to give out is that never give up to trust in the good. The good will prevail over evil. That is the basic message. If we love our fellow human beings, and if you love the creation.
Thank you.
Okay, Detlev?
Yeah, thanks a lot. And Matt, we will shout with you at the end of the show. I do thank everybody who was participating, and I'm looking forward to our next show, which will take place on the 14th of July. It's also a French holiday, by the way. So it's just next door here, France, from my office. And so we are looking forward to seeing everybody back on our show on UnitedWeStart.org, roundtable discussion. And if you're interested, you can have a look at our Wake News Radio, Wake News TV shows. If you speak German or are interested in German, every Tuesday and Thursdays in the afternoon. You can look it up at our website. And so let's hear Matt with his proposition here.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks again, guys. We look forward to being with you again next month. Tell your friends, families, and neighbors to join in and listen to the conversation. We'll probably have a guest here to help educate you next month. Until then, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Death to the new world order.
Yeah, thank you. Well done, guys. So see you next month. Bye-bye.
United we start.
We explore the new world order, finance, science, health, and other subjects in our group discussions of activists, bloggers, authors, and other leaders in the independent media to inform and educate listeners on various topics. Join us the second Saturday of the month at 10 to 12 a.m. Pacific Time, 18 to 20 hours GMT. Looking forward to meeting you.